You're listening to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. This is The Gailey Show. I am your host, JP Derapagosian. We are the show that celebrates LGBTQ culture and entertainment in Minnesota and beyond. And our guest today was in Minnesota and is now beyond and lives in Hawaii, the author of the new amazing novel. I'm holding it up for folks who are watching on YouTube, of Leap, a memoir by Brent Love. Brent, welcome to The Gailey Show.
Thanks, JP. I am super thrilled to be here and so excited to be talking to you.
Absolutely. So tell us, what is your memoir about?
Oh gosh, it's about a lot of things, but I'll tell you the story is me coming out 3 days before I left for Peace Corps in Armenia. And so I came out in a small Texas town. I had what I feared would be a kind of terrible reaction, and it was hard. And so I had, a pretty difficult reaction when I came out, and then left for Peace Corps and had a pretty unconventional coming out experience in that I lived in Armenia and I was kind of coming out and trying to fulfill this dream of being in Peace Corps. I didn't plan for those things to happen at the same time, but it sure made for a great story, obviously. And it's out and people are reading it and people can buy it now at their favorite bookstore. And I'm super, super excited for people to come out with me, but also to get to, go to Armenia and have that experience, because more people need to either travel there or at least travel vicariously, right? That's what books are about.
Right. Yes. And for folks who know, I am Armenian American. And so I can tell you also, as the founder of the Queer Armenian Library, for listeners who don't know that, I can tell you that this is a literal first of its kind book. No one has written a book like this and has described the journey. And you had an amazing journey, which is why I am curious then, because all of these things happen. I have got to read some advanced chapters. Thank you very much. But there's a lot that happens to you. So why did you? And a lot of it is very personal. I mean, your coming out story is very personal, and there are ups and there are downs to it. So what made you want to put it down in writing and to share it as a book?
Gosh. I wrote this book for 4.5 years. So it kind of depends on when you asked me during the 4.5 years why I was writing it. And some of the time it was just because I just couldn't quit. I'd gotten too far. But ultimately, I sat down to write it. I've loved queer stories, obviously, coming out. They've been such a huge life raft for me. Often I grew up in a small town in Texas. Wasn't around gay people who are certainly out. And I remember the first queer stories I saw on TV, the Will and Grace, the Ellen, like all of that stuff was happening. And as we look back at those stories and maybe we critique them or maybe we don't, they were so important to me. And I also was a library kid, and I got to go to the library alone, and this is before the internet and before the kind of book wars that we're having kind of culturally right now. And so I was just sitting in there, and I remember reading my favorite book series, His Dark Materials, The Golden Compass, which people will know, right? And I remember reading in the final book there, the gay angels, and it just blew my mind. And so as I was kind of having this internal struggle, it was so important to me to have those stories. And now I had a story that I felt was compelling. There were things that readers could learn about what it was like to come out in that way. And I wanted to add to that. I wanted to add to that kind of library of queer work. And then as I wrote it, what I found was there were a lot of folks with conservative backgrounds, both queer people who are coming out, but I've talked to a lot of parents because there's a lot about my parents in the book and about that journey with them, which was very difficult. And we have a very close relationship now. And so people who are in that boat now are reaching out to me and saying, hey, I want to read your book. I want to see what it was like to come out, knowing where you're at now with your parents. What was it like then? And so that's been really important. And if I can share one more reason, it's that, is that I've always wanted to write a book. And as I was living out that experience, and it was really difficult, one of the drivers to me living through that experience, kind of a survival piece for me was like, this is extremely hard. And I'm going to tell people what happened when I get out of here, when I get through the situation, and hopefully it ends well, but whatever the ending is, I'm going to tell people, what happened. And so it's a little bit of fulfilling a promise to myself, to write this book and to share the story.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you literally are one of a kind that we, as far as I'm aware, no American has, come out and gone and spent 2 years in, Armenia, and you traveled throughout the country exploring both who you were as a person, your relationship to your family, but you were also staying with a number of host families as part of your Peace Corps assignment. So I am kind of curious, now, what did you learn about family? Because over this time period, you were dealing with your family, you're staying with these host families. So, what is your sensibility of what a family is or should be?
Well, that's such a big question. There's so many families that I lived with in Armenia, and one of the, Armenia is for kind of culturally and kind of popular thought is that Armenia isn't a very welcoming place to LGBTQ people, and there are certainly people who queer people who live in Armenia who would share their own stories about that. I was nervous, so I didn't really come out to those families while I lived with them, and at the same time, I received so much warmth and hospitality and care, and real care. There's a part in the book where before I learned Armenian, where my family was just teaching me like their own, with the care they give to their own kids, right?
Yeah.
And they're teaching me words, and I was able to kind of realize through that experience how much they were rooting for me and how that much they were on my team, and they didn't care whether I got the words right or wrong. They just were rooting for me to enjoy this experience and to learn from them and to really bond with them. They were interested in that kind of relationship with me, which was so buoying at the time because I'd gone through this kind of difficult experience with my family right before I arrived. And then, one of the things, if I can share a story that's not in the book because it happens well after the book, is that I did return to Armenia. At the time I wasn't able to come out to my family that I lived with, but when I was able to go back, they had gotten on Facebook. They weren't on Facebook when I lived with them. The internet, is getting to every corner of the earth, right? And so they were on Facebook and they saw pictures of my wedding and they saw pictures of my family, and they just extended such warmth and love. And that experience of family and the love that we shared with each other was just so much beyond these popular narratives about, the way Armenians might respond to me as a queer person, as a queer American, and how I might respond to them. And their beliefs, and all of that was just washed away by an actual real connection with real humans. We just shared the things that are important to us on the most basic and simple levels, like food and games and holidays. All of that. We had all those memories, and so when I came out to them, they were like, "Oh well." Literally, my friend who the mom of the family that I lived with said, "You're a brother. You're happy. We're happy. That's it." And why had I expected anything less? I shouldn't have.
Yeah. Well, we have just about a minute left here. So first of all, how can folks order your book?
They can go to heybrentlove.com. I've got a list of all your favorite bookstores where it's where you can order it. Of course, you can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And I encourage everyone to go to their local bookstore and ask for a copy. Your local bookstore can order it. It's helpful for me. It's helpful for your bookstore. So go do that as well.
And how can people connect with you on social media?
Go to @HeyBrentLove, primarily on Instagram. I love talking to readers, so DM me, message me in the comments. It's been a lot of fun talking to people who've already got to read the book.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation on our YouTube channel and everywhere that you get your podcast. So follow us there, watch us there. For right now, Brent, thank you for being on The Gailey Show.
So happy to be here.
Well, that is our show for today. Thanks everyone for listening and or watching. As always, you can connect with us through our website, thisqueerbook.com. And until our next episode, see you queers and allies in the bookstores.